Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt,
And I'm the Orbiter.
and welcome to Breaking Bollocks episode 5.
5?
Five?
Jesus.
Is it episode 5?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, must be. Yeah.
Yeah. This one we will be talking about Brexit, but before we get started, I just want to get a couple of things on my mind out of the way before they dissipate, like...
Look out, Donald Trump.
That's not the analogy I was looking for, but... Okay, I can't think of an analogy, but it will disappear probably in the coming weeks. So, wanted to bring up the recent shooting at a school in America. Obviously, terrible tragedy, but I just get so angry at America because the rest of the world makes sense, but then they just scream and eat Tide Pods.
The rest of the world doesn't make sense, but this is a specific issue.
It makes more sense.
Yeah, I suppose in some ways.
Just if you took any other country and was like, they have strict laws on gun control. I saw a list today on Twitter where it looked, oh, here's a bunch of countries that are considered to be sort of Western. The UK had zero mass shootings since 2000.
Since Dunblane. That was the last one, and they banned handguns after that.
Yeah.
We haven't had one since.
In Australia, they had one mass shooting a while back. I don't know specifically when, and I can't be bothered to research it. And then they went, let's put gun controls and everything. Guess what? They've had no mass shootings since.
I mean, I don't want to be insulting to Americans any more than is necessary. Sorry. But I often wonder, in some ways, how the rest of the world view your own country from the outside. I mean, that was actually a follow-on thought from what I was going to say was, do you realise that the most of the world just see you as a cowboy western, kind of gone a bit like on too long?
Yeah.
It's not meant as an insult. It probably is, but that's interesting though, because I wonder how people see the UK.
Guns and Bibles.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine used to live in America for a little while. I think Philadelphia, he said, and we often discuss with him the whole kind of view of America as being so devoutly kind of religious, and the gun things as well, but. From his experience, he says that when you actually live there, it's not as much like that as it seems to be from the outside. I think it's quite polarized.
That's because Philadelphia's in the northwest of America.
Yeah,
and that's one of the more secular areas of America. If you go further south, you probably would see.
We got to be careful
a lot more
because we're encroaching on different topic subjects that we're going to be discussing.
Yes, but I thought this was important.
Yeah.
And just, these are kids getting killed. It's so simple. Why? It's not like a total ban on guns, because I don't think many places actually think that's a good idea. Because there are exceptions where it's like, well, farmers need to be able to protect their crops from predators. And so you could make a certain case for defense, but it's not very strong in my opinion. And I think in most countries there's a sort of give us a valid reason rather than just I
also think it's a bit
enough.
Sad. I mean, like, I would imagine that one of the main arguments that the gun lobby present is about having self-protection on you at all times and be able to defend yourself. But to me, that's actually quite sad, because you know, if you feel that you need a deadly weapon with you to feel safe,
you don't seem to understand that
what kind of society are you protecting?
The reason that society exists is because people have so much access to these weapons.
Yeah, I mean, we have a certain amount of knife problems in the UK, don't we?
It's not as much as America. You can't go on mass stabbings because you'll get stopped fairly quickly.
Yeah.
An assault rifle is much more effective at killing than a knife.
Yeah.
And a knife has other purposes other than killing.
Yeah.
I also find that really,
My point is though that those it's the people that do the killing. It's
yeah.
the tools that they've got that enable them
I
to make
find
it
it
far
really
more
funny
atrocious.
how some Americans are like, oh well, you have problems with terrorists using trucks to do mass killings, and then I'm like, yeah, but you still have licenses to be able to drive a truck. You don't in America have a license to own a gun, which it's so backwards. I mean, it varies from states to state, but that's another confusing thing. Anyway, enough about that because I think we've been rambling on about this enough, and I just wanted to get that out of my system.
You're feeling slightly off-putted now.
Now on to Brexit.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, this might cause some controversy. Within.
Yeah,
Do you have many friends that are Brexiteers?
I don't have any friends that are Brexiteers.
Good.
I have some family members,
Uh,
as do you.
naturally.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. I would like to. I would like to try to approach this in a balanced way and consider the different sides of, because there's been so much vitriol on both sides. I think of the debate that
Yeah. A little bit of truth is necessary sometimes.
that's not as easy as it seems either, is it?
We will try and research as much as the things that we say as possible. But
Which reminds me, I forgot to look it up before we started, but there was an article that I read in the Independent online. A guy who's a leader of a student campaign group that would very much like to stop Brexit altogether, and he was being interviewed on Sky. On a Sky Politics program, we'll put the link in the description. His name is Femi Oluwole. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But he's basically talking about the promising to deliver the will of the people for the under 55 population. And I think one of the interesting comments that he's made, aside from everything else, I mean, he makes some very valid comments about the chaos of the whole situation as things stand at the moment, but also points out that already, statistically, when you look at all the statistical evidence for the generational groups that voted in different ways, generally, already enough of that population has died or joined the electorate to sway the vote the other way. So, he's basically saying that in 5 years' time, are we going to have sorted all this stuff out when it's going to be even more the other way,
well, that reminds me, I think this was in the Independent. I did see an article that split the whole Brexit debate into 6 camps, 3 on the Leave side and 3 on the Remain side. I'll try and pull up that article just so that I have.
I do think the media have deliberately manipulated the whole situation to be divisive. I mean, having said that about the statistics of the different generation groups, they're just statistics. There's no need for hurling mud at each other.
It's actually 5 camps apparently.
And that thing about the statistics of the different age groups, that doesn't even take into account anyone who may have changed their minds.
Hang on.
Based on what's happened since.
Hang on. No, that was a different article. 6 Tribes of Brexit. It wasn't the Independent. It was Financial Times, and it actually detailed the age that the people in these camps would be, what political parties they support, and their education level.
Where do we get just as a matter of interest, where do we get this information from? Because I think, as quite rightly some people have pointed out, this whole thing about the generational divide, where's the evidence for that? Because there's no kind of, you don't say how old you are on the polling form.
Hang on.
Ipsos Mori. A survey of 4,000 voters.
I assume they asked for their age in that survey.
So these statistics obviously are made from surveys, which a referendum is.
Okay, so the
valid.
Main camps on the Leave side that they identified was British values leavers, the sort of people that are like, oh, we want to take our country back and...
Take it back where?
Yeah, like stop immigration because they're taking all our jobs. And then it's like, but most of these people live in the countryside where immigration's effect is minimal. And so they're just being they're probably old people that are just like, well, the country used to be better when we had polio.
Quite often the language, when you look at the language that's being used, it becomes worrying because people don't tend to realise what they're saying when they say it. It's like, literally, you want to take your country back.
Yeah.
Why would you want to take your country back? Why not take it forward?
Unsurprisingly, in my opinion, the Remain voters tend to be graduates of, I'd assume, college or university, and more of the Leave voters left school at 16, which is an interesting fact just to see. And
it would be
a lot more of the...
but it would be easy for anyone who is in the camp of Leave voters who left, who either left at 16 or was a graduate, to interpret that the stating of that statistic as some kind of intellectual elitism. I think that's what I'm keen to avoid is the the antagonism that's been prevalent is. Well, you know, I completely disagree with the Leave voters, but I don't think it.
I think education does play a role in it.
Yeah, and I think it's probably important to acknowledge that
if you're the sort of person that's more engaged in these sorts of things.
Yeah, basically, if you're not a graduate,
you're probably more. If you're more interested in the world, you're probably more educated about it. Yeah, basically.
Nobody's saying that if you're not a graduate or you're a Leave voter that you're thick. You know, your opinion matters, but the fact is, people who have more education about these situations vote in a particular way. And it's a bit like that Michael Gove thing.
It's not
He's
to
such
do
a
with
fucking twat. We've had enough of the experts. It's like, no, you know, you don't get fucking Joe Bloggs off the street to build you a car because we've had enough of the expert car manufacturers, do you?
It's not really to do with intelligence. It's more to do with how informed you are.
That's another interesting thing as well. I saw an interesting one of these Facebook meme things, but it split the different generations, like Generation X, Generation Z, the baby boomers and all that, and it gave like a pro and a con for each generation. And the one thing that I did notice about which is the latest one, Generation Z, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be me. I'm not sure because
born post millennium.
As sort of another generation coming along. I'm not sure because I have a niece, and that would be your granddaughter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what generation she would be a part of.
Don't think
it's been named yet.
The point was that Generation Z are apparently more politically informed than any generation of children have been, and it's simply because of the connectivity, the online presence all the time.
Although if I look at most people at school that aren't part of my friend group, you could have reached different conclusions, but
I knew sod all about what was going on with politics when I was your age. You know, I mean, it was, but basically your exposure to it was the 6 o'clock or the 9 o'clock news at home, and you tended to avoid that because that was what your mum or dad watched, and you know, you wanted to put the Crystal Maze on instead or something.
It's like, I think probably 75% of the TV that I watch is to do with news. It's like satirical looks at news.
It's a good thing.
And I tend to, like you said, looking at an outsider's view of a country I find to be quite useful, because then you get a more impartial look at it, I suppose. Not impartial, but unaffected by having grown up there.
It's certainly been an eye-opener for me to see England from the outside for the last 16 years.
Take that as you will, England.
I'm English.
But you're now living in Scotland, so
I am, yeah, and intend to continue doing so because.
Okay, the next sort of camp of leavers are working class leavers, the sort of people who genuinely can't find a job, and because the news are saying it's all the immigrants' fault, they believe that because there's not really another alternative. And to be honest, I feel like these people are dealt a bad hand, so it's kind of understandable that they would be thinking that a change is necessary and just be quite desperate for that. So I actually feel quite sorry for this camp of leavers, despite the fact that they're wrong in their reasons. If that makes sense.
Yeah, in your opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And mine too, I have to say. But, I understand there's a lot of suffering and stuff. But there's going to be a whole shitload more, sorry.
By the looks of it, a lot more of the Remainers on this chart live in cities, which is quite interesting because the effect of...
You left out an important word there, though.
What?
Used to life in multicultural cities. And cities are generally more multicultural, so then people there, there are...
But it's interesting to see, because you would think, well, if a place is multicultural, then that's going to mean that more people who are affected by that would occur. But
they're more used to.
A lot more of leavers live in rural areas and they don't get affected by immigration that much, despite thinking that it has a negative impact.
So where are they getting that impression from?
I would assume the news.
Yeah, I would say certain news outlets, should we say.
Yeah.
There are certain newspapers who profit from the division of society.
Right. The last camp of leavers are basically people who have, they're called moderate leavers, basically people who think the EU is flawed and that's why we should leave. To me, they're the most sensible of the leavers.
It's a bit defeatist, though, to me.
Yeah.
It's like,
we should probably work on fixing it before...
Yeah, and sending Nigel Farage in is probably not the best way to do that.
No, that's just going to piss off everyone and make it a mess, to be honest. But, won't elect him for our own parliament, but we'll elect it for the thing that he hates the most.
Somebody explain that to me.
Yeah,
please.
It's bizarre.
Comment and explain why the
funniest
hell
thing
he was
about
even
this
there.
Is that now that he's done this, he's pretty much out of a job.
I know why he was there.
And now he's...
Whoever put him there knew that... Because this is to do with how other countries see the UK, isn't it?
Mm.
Whoever put him there knew that the rest of Europe would hate Britain so much because he was the face of Britain to them in European Parliament that by the time we decided to leave, they'd be ready to say goodbye. Be like, well, yeah, we don't want Nigel Farage in here, just fuck off.
I don't think Nigel Farage is enough to repulse the rest of Europe from the UK. I mean, yeah, he is pretty repulsive to me, but if you're looking at the pros and cons of the UK being in the EU to the EU, you've got all the money that they give, and then you got Nigel Farage. I think all the money outweighs that.
He doesn't strike me as the kind of person you could have a reasonable conversation with about an issue on which you disagree.
No. And
that's
any
a worry.
I think he can change the subject to immigration no matter what. I think It's like, do you want to talk about education?
He's like that annoying.
Yeah, we need to stop foreign people being there. Do you want to talk about healthcare? We need to stop foreign people being there.
He's like that annoying uncle that you just try to pretend isn't at the family wedding. It's all right. We're not going to have to see him for another few years.
Right.
I'd apologise if I thought you were watching, and if I meant it.
He probably won't watch this. He probably doesn't know what YouTube is. Anyway, I'm sorry if that's you.
Liar.
I don't even know who this person is, and we won't name names. On to the Remainers. This weird uncle that you're talking about.
Oh, I'm talking about Nigel Farage.
Oh, right.
That got a bit confusing. Sorry.
I thought you were talking about someone that's a genuine uncle, but okay.
No.
Anyway.
That got weird. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, so the first camp of the Remainers were disengaged Remainers. By the looks of it, they just weren't really motivated to leave. It's like, well, things are alright. They're not going to get better if we leave. Just stay as it is, pretty much. It's probably just sort of meh. It's a big faff to change it, so don't do it. The other two camps of Remainers, I think, are a lot more active in their political engagement. So you got some younger urban Remainers who are very politically engaged and...
Ooh,
What?
I just had a really nice thought. That guy that I was talking about that did the campaign, the student group, about mobilising under 55s to reverse the decision. I just realised I'm in that group. That makes me... Yeah, I'm under 55.
Oh.
So
I thought you meant, like, I'm in the student campaign. I'm like, no. How do you realise that you've just committed to that?
No, I've just realised that I'm lumped in with the same section of the population as you in that situation.
Great. I mean, I'm not actually able to vote.
But the things that annoy me are stuff like when I go on holiday.
I don't think that actually counts because I'm not actually able to vote. So,
I mean, the practical things, apart from the value of the pound, when I go on holiday, I'm not going to get free texts and free data anymore.
That's a weird thing, actually.
Do you remember when we went to Turkey last year and we had a day trip out to Rhodes, and suddenly for that day we had free online access data and whatever on our phones.
That was nice.
And then when we came back to Turkey, we had to disable the data on the phone.
Yeah. And we were like, don't answer calls whilst you're out and about. Don't.
To a lot of people, and this is a generational thing, it's just by its very nature, that may be a case of, well, you're on holiday, you should just put your bloody phone away and like enjoy yourself and not be needing to be hooked on being... But it's like, yeah, but you come from a different world. Literally, you come from a different world. People who are young nowadays have always been connected to the internet. It's a collective, not intelligence, but it's a collective resource. And to me, it's not a question of you should just put your phone away. It's a case of you should have the choice. If you want to turn it off while you're on holiday, that's up to you, but you should have the choice.
It's very useful for information. Like, if you're like, how likely am I to die of heat exhaustion whilst outside? It's 42 degrees. Put all the sun cream on.
Not to mention the fact that internet access is now listed as a basic human right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I can't remember if it's it's an international human rights organisation or if it was an EU thing. I think it was a global thing that is officially recognised as a basic human right. For access to the internet.
Bizarre reasons, recently read over the UN Declaration of Human Rights. I don't think that was in there. It might be a different thing, though.
Look it up.
I'm still on this article.
Yeah, I know, but I'll need to put that in.
I wanted to say, it's a weird thing. I was wondering if the reason that my generation is more politically engaged is because we can't vote. It's like, you don't have this thing, you don't have the ability to be actually politically engaged.
Which is ironic, because a lot of teenagers I would trust more with the vote than a lot of people who grew up with no interest or no exposure to politics.
But that's democracy for you.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not. This referendum thing isn't what democracy has evolved to be.
Then you have to go...
Democracy has checks and balances.
Yeah.
And this referendum didn't pass any of them.
Were 16-year-olds allowed to vote in the Brexit referendum?
I can't remember.
Because I think... I do remember a campaign on that, and I don't think it got through, so that's quite possibly why it went that way, because the younger people weren't actually allowed to vote.
I kind of understand the logic behind people that are, sort of fed up with the people that are fighting against it by the Leavers, who are basically, the argument is, we won the vote, let's just get on with it. But...
I'm like, well, it's very complex.
You have to put yourself in the position of the other side in this situation.
Yeah.
This is an issue which is drastically going to affect a whole population's lives, and for multiple reasons. And there was a very small majority. I mean, the government can't get through, and under normal circumstances can't get through far less important things in Parliament with bigger majorities than that.
I'm actually going to look this up quickly. It was basically how much of a hit a no-deal situation would be to the British economy. See if that's on here at all. Yeah. Right, so The Guardian saying a no-deal Brexit would cost the EU £100 billion, and it would cost the Independent saying it would cost the United Kingdom £252 billion, which is a lot of money. That's a no-deal situation.
Yeah, none of the scenarios win in the short term. And to be honest, that's all you can really see it being.
Then the other option, if we don't go into a no-deal situation, is that we're pretty much in the same position we were before, having to follow EU laws for trade reasons, and not actually having a say in the European Parliament.
It's really difficult not to get emotively involved in this. You know, I mean, I'm sat here thinking, I just fucking hate the Tories.
Yeah.
And that's not very constructive. Not a good way to build an argument.
I think it's a good start.
Well, you see, the thing is, I'm not so sure, you know how politics works, I'm not so sure it wasn't all kind of engineered, you know.
Okay.
Whether or not Cameron. What did I say? Cameron McIntosh. No, not James Cameron. What the fuck's David Cameron?
Very tired today.
And I was up editing till 7:30 this morning. Sorry. David Cameron, yeah. I wonder if he just knew before it all happened that he was going to be the scapegoat. And
I don't think he expected people to actually vote for it. And so it was like just do. And like, yeah, let's just tiptoe out of this so that I don't have to deal with that shitload. And then
I don't blame him.
Like, he left so that, because he was like, well, we shouldn't have a Remainer dealing with Brexit. And then Theresa May got into it.
Do you know what?
Was a Remainer originally.
You know when he came out and gave that retirement speech? At Downing Street? I just wish he'd come out and just looked at the camera and gone, seriously? Just what the fuck, dudes? You're on your own.
Fed up.
Bye.
I mean, like, Cameron's a twat, but I think Theresa May's just worse. just much worse. I mean, she was dealt a shitty hand, but yeah, much worse in my opinion.
Mm.
We're now getting into a debate about which Tory is the worst.
I lived in an area which is primarily conservative.
Actually,
for a long time.
The constituency we live in is actually conservative right now.
It is now, yeah.
It's annoying. Now you're.
It actually makes me want to vote SNP next time. Just to get them out.
Anyway.
And the SNP are quite progressive.
Okay, I'm going to get on to the final camp in this article that I've been yammering on about for most of this.
Do it.
Which is an older camp of liberals, who are most likely to be Liberal Democrats from this graphic here. Unsurprisingly, the Remainers are much more likely to vote Labour.
Yeah.
And there's a graph here that's basically showing which each of the camps, what party they're wanting to vote for, probably. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that a fair bit of Labour's support comes from working class leavers, who are the ones that were just like, I'm unemployed, I need a job, I'm desperate. And that's probably why
scary.
Labour's taking quite a
it's not surprising, but
non-aggressive stance on it. I think they're just going.
I mean, looking at those charts there, it's basically it's a right wing versus left wing thing, isn't it? Pretty much.
There's practically no, like, there's a tiny percentage in the British values levers for anything that isn't Tory or UKIP.
What the hell are British values?
Conquering half the world.
What the hell are British values?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like queuing. Is it queuing?
Yeah, cups of tea.
Yeah, I mean that they're Indian, but okay. Pretty much everything.
But they were British when we occupied.
They're British if we take it.
When we occupied India.
Pretty much. This is getting into a depressing discussion about empire.
Look at the history books and tell me that British history is something that you're proud of.
There are genuinely people that want to reinstate the British Empire, and I just don't understand how they think.
Explain to me why.
I don't know. Like,
is it not
a feeling
nicer
of
just to get
superiority?
along with
Like I'm the center of the world and America's not.
But just that need to be the center of the world means that you're not superior.
People want to be feel important, and I don't know. Hang on, I'll check at the top.
But the way to do that is not to make other people less important.
Yeah, the older liberal Remainers, I think, are a lot more middle class, hence why they live in the southeast. Yeah, they have, because they are fairly middle class, with the education they get from being middle class, they just don't really understand why you would want to vote leave.
Because the other thing, I mean, all these sort of, the laws coming down from Brussels and stuff like that, when you look into them, a lot of them are actually, by the time they get through British Parliament, have actually been made more stringent than the European version. Britain tends to be more severe with these kinds of things. We add stuff to it. And
now, this is interesting to see. It's basically a graph of the socioeconomic status of each of the camps. And to be honest, they seem like... I'm not sure which one is more middle class, actually. I think the Remainers are actually more middle class, which is interesting to see.
Not bad,
they're
aren't they?
Quite similar, I think. But to be honest, there's actually not much difference, so I don't know why I brought it up. Anyway, enough about that article, because I think we've been going on about it long enough. Immigration. Let's do a rundown of all the issues, is basically what I'm saying. So, immigration's probably the most forefront at most of the Leave voters' minds.
Okay, and what is it about immigration that that Leave voters object to?
I just think that they want something to point blame at for why everything's going tits up. They want someone to blame, basically.
It feels like there's an expectation that, there are probably realists who think that it will take a long time to get to this point, but that it is some kind of magic wand. One of my concerns is the understaffing of the National Health Service. Because we have a skills shortage here, and it may well be that over a long period of time it would encourage the skills to be developed here. But have you seen our education system?
That is actually something quite interesting that I was talking to Mum about today. Is the amount of research that is funded by the EU, and that's likely gonna, because when I leave home and go to uni, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of research in science, physics particularly, which means the relationship with CERN and UK universities would be uncertain at the moment, so
I suppose the conservative way...
just realised how much it might affect me, how the deal actually goes.
I suppose the conservative solution to that would be to have research funded by private organisations, wouldn't it? By companies.
No, because then it's going to get sponsored.
Exactly. That would be the capitalist way.
What happens a disturbing amount of time with research? It gets sponsored by companies, and then the results get skewed to make the companies happy.
Well, exactly.
It's not actually the results that get skewed. I think it's the overall summary that's
the presentation of them.
Yeah. Like a lot of health studies tend to do that. There's quite a common misconception that you're meant to drink 8 glasses of water a day. That's actually not true.
A glass is a bit of a vague amount anyway.
And it turns out most of those studies were funded by things like Gatorade and Powerade that want you to feel, oh yes, this is the best drink for hydration. You need to still feel absolutely maximum hydration.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, drink when you're thirsty. That's usually a good measure unless you've got a medical problem.
So back to Europe.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people...
I just don't want to leave.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't see why. I mean, if somebody asked a Leave voter the question, would you vote in favour of forcibly removing 49 out of 100 of your friends from an organisation which benefits them, and they will lose a lot of rights?
I don't think that's the exact percentage of the UK.
It's around about that. It's 48 point something, isn't it?
I will check.
I think it was 51 point something. The actual end result was for leaving.
I thought you meant immigrants to the country.
Oh no, sorry, we've moved on to immigrants, haven't we? Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? Half of the UK is.
I don't see what the problem with immigrants is. There's a basic objection there that I don't get.
Yeah, I just tend to think that multiculturalism is better for society because you get loads of the best people in the world. Surely you want them in your country.
I mean, I would like to understand it, but to me, it seems to fall into the same camp as like, you know, if somebody new moves into a small village and all the locals are like, you're not from round here. You know, it's like,
I you chose a West Country accent there very appropriately.
I'm not going to try and do different accents. I was going to say, which accent would you like me to do? But hey, you're not from round here.
I think York actually voted Remain.
Yeah,
should probably check that. Actually, the North was surprisingly, for how usually left they are, they were more for the Leave camp. So
surely getting as much of a mix of different kinds of people as possible is a benefit.
Hang on.
Surely, I don't see the logic in an opposing argument to that.
York voted Remain. This is, I assume, some local news website for York, the York Mix.
And I think the other thing as well is that a lot of the people who voted to leave see themselves as more British, whereas a lot of the Remainers see themselves as more European. You know, a lot of them, with the age statistics, these people were born Europeans.
I think
you're asking them basically to leave their country.
Britain is an island. They feel, oh yeah, we're separate from the mainland, so we're like we could be in the middle of the Atlantic for all they care because we're actually diplomatically closer to the US for some reason.
Yeah,
we have that special relationship thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we do.
That's a really weird thing.
We do look after some of their missiles.
It's like, if you look at the actual history of it, they used to be a colony and they revolted against us, yet we seem to be having really strong diplomatic ties to them.
It's like a really nasty breakup where one of them's like sort of, but I just want to be your friend. It's like, can we still be friends? And I'll just like hang around you.
Yeah. I'll stop reading your text messages.
Well, I'm not sure America did, but
what?
Stop reading our text
messages.
I
think I was talking about Britain being in control of America at that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to Europe. We keep diverting.
Well, I suppose it's relevant, our relationship with different countries.
There's quite an interesting thing, especially straight after the actual vote came out, about how, because Scotland voted overwhelmingly for Remain. I think it was 67%. And a lot of people were thinking, well, the reason that there was a referendum in 2014 whether Scotland should be independent, that I think it was 55 to 45 went to staying, which is why Scotland's not its own thing anymore.
But at the time, the argument was used by the opposers.
Well, we need to stay in the EU. If we leave, we're not going to get into the EU because at the moment, Catalonia is wanting to gain independence from Spain, and Spain would be part of the approval for Scotland's entry into the EU. And if Scotland went independent and then they had to go, Scotland's going to be in the EU, then Catalonia is going to be like, hang on, why is that independent country allowed to do this and you're not letting us have independence? That's a little hypocritical.
Yeah.
That was terribly explained, but...
There's a lot of political precedents that are kind of potentially happening, aren't there?
Yeah. Northern Ireland. That's a
fucking mess now. I mean, they just got things sorted out, and then...
Well, I think actually at the moment the Northern
I haven't
Irish
heard much
Assembly is in a bit of a mess as well.
Yeah, but is it any
Because
surprise?
There's not any particular party that's... I mean, I think the DUP has got more seats, but very narrowly, so they're not really doing much in that sense.
Apart from going and cozying up to the Tories at Westminster.
Uh-huh. That's a weird situation. It's sort of like, you didn't get a majority and you're not in a coalition. How are you going to govern? Well, we're just going to have a sort of... we do stuff for Northern Ireland, and then...
Is it alright if I bring my friend along?
They basically gave them £1 billion for 10 seats.
Hang on a minute. Is that not like buying YouTube subscribers?
No.
Yeah, it's buying votes.
Well, not all that money went towards the DUP's things. It went towards just general things in Northern Ireland, but
yeah, which the DUP...
It was sort of unofficially, oh yeah, this is a bribe.
Yeah.
So if the cost per seat is £100 million, then, you know, £65 billion, and you can have a whole parliament.
So one vote in Parliament costs £100 million.
Yeah.
To us taxpayers.
Not one vote, one seat.
One seat.
If it was one vote...
Well, all right then. One seat that you can rely on to vote for you.
Not to vote for you.
Or to vote with you on issues that you kind of negotiate with them about. It's bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like we've kind of been stitched up here.
Going to be worrying if there is a no-deal situation, because that could mean that suddenly a hard border comes into effect in Ireland, which would really fuck things up. Like, I'm not sure how much aware the rest of the world are about this, because like in the 80s there was a bunch of, and 90s, there was a bunch of terrorism in Ireland that I had no idea existed until relatively recently, because it wasn't
just in Northern Ireland. It was a regular thing in London.
Because the
IRA bombed.
It was because of the Ireland situation.
Yes, yeah.
But
it was a part of life.
It was sort of
every day,
just
pretty much.
Kept quiet for me, at least. I didn't.
That I was very aware of at the time, but it was just normal. You know, it was normal to see a bomb going off in London on the news.
And then it's bizarre to see now that quite a lot of people just think, well, only Muslims do terrorism. And then you look just a couple of decades ago, and there's terrorism happening between Christians. It's bizarre.
Pretty much every country does terrorism, and every group does terrorism in some form or other. Is that
why there was... well, there has been... I mean, it's stereotypes, but, you know, sometimes with the stereotypes about particular countries, there's some racism under it. Is that why there's a sort of joking, but there's an uncomfortable place
about
with
the
that?
Irish?
Yeah, about the Irish.
I don't know. When I was a lot younger, when I was a kid, it felt very amicable, like, you know, just kind of a. But see, I looking back wouldn't really relate that to the Northern Ireland Irish. I tend to think of the whole kind of leprechauns kind of, you know, Irish challenged intelligence thing as being more the Southern Irish, but it doesn't mean anything. It's not.
No, it's just probably not based in facts either.
No. It's just an amicable kind of insult trading. I mean, you know, like sort of treating English people as all like sort of posh upper class twits. You know, it's similar to that. It's just like there's no offence meant by it, by most people.
All Scots as kilt-wearing freedom fighters.
Haggis-eating caber tossers.
I don't even know what a caber tosser is, but...
Do you know what? You don't know what tossing the caber is?
No.
Oh my god! Tossing the caber. You've got to look up some tossing the caber videos at some point. We'll find some and I'll put a link up.
I'm scared.
It happens at the Highland Games around here all the time.
Yeah, but I don't.
You have to be really strong. Basically,
Oh, is it like
you're basically throwing a telegraph pole.
Okay.
But basically kilted blokes balancing literally a pole of wood like a telegraph pole in their hands, balancing it and moving around and then throwing it as to see how far they can throw it. It's fucking mental.
Did not know this existed.
Yeah, tossing the caber.
Back onto Brexit. I feel like that's just going to be the catchphrase of this
We
episode.
digress.
The economy. Yeah. Ooh, that's going to be a mess after this.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know if it's going to be as bad as people were thinking, but it's already got worse. And it hasn't recovered to the point that it was before all this happened.
one of the main campaign points for the Leave campaign was that we send, I think it's about £350 million every week to the EU.
Yeah, they forgot to mention that we get a huge chunk of that back.
Loads of subsidies for agriculture and research, but that's not good advertising. And
that's all kind of old news, isn't it? I mean, I think most people.
I think there was quite a bit of
fear
fear-mongering on both sides of the campaign. Oh, but it annoys me because that sort of anti-elitist sentiment is an anti-sense sentiment because they don't actually follow the advice of people that know what they're talking about.
What annoys me is that we have no choice now. We have no control over it.
Really, we're now just doing.
It's like you're in a room
a
full
bit of a moan about it, but that's not going to change it.
You're in a room full of 100 people who are trying to decide something really important that's going to affect all of their lives, and I'm in that group of 49 that are just kind of get shat on.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation where such a narrow majority makes such a big difference,
especially when it was done on one day.
Yeah, like this one day will change history pretty much.
Yeah, but hey ho, that is history. I mean, single events do change things, and it hasn't happened yet. It might not happen.
What?
It hasn't happened yet. Brexit. It might not happen.
I think it will. I find it unlikely that there'll be a second referendum, and they've already hit Article 50. They've already enacted Article 50 and said...
Yeah, but until it goes through, it can always be reversed.
Which I think...
It'd make it look fucking stupid. Whatever happens, the country has been damaged already.
By the time this goes out, it's been about a year since Article 50 was triggered, which means that next year...
And still they haven't got a fucking clue what's going on.
Yeah. Next year, unless something else has happened and finally the numerous campaigns to have a second referendum have gotten through, we'll be leaving the EU.
And things like, people who are kind of, we're going to get our blue passports back, yay. It's like, what the fuck? What?
Yeah, that really throws me. I'm like...
Is that...
Do you know that there's
an argument?
EU law against blue passports?
I don't know what...
There's nothing about that.
Is there not?
The EU's flag is blue.
I really don't
Why would
care.
you want a blue passport?
I really don't care what
EU
colour
is
my
blue.
passport is.
I don't
care about what it does.
Yeah. Which will change as well.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is fuck us up. But I don't think it was interesting because pretty much after the vote, I think you were going, well, I can't change anything about it, so I'm just gonna ignore it for a bit. Not ignore it, but not be so sort of this is gonna be.
I saw people getting quite angry with each other about it, and it's like, I'll just get on with your life and coexist with people. That's the whole point.
I thought, hang on, the pound is now worth much less. I think it's getting slightly back on its feet.
Seriously, we went to Tenerife, didn't we? Not long after that,
and it cost
that holiday,
a significant amount more.
Yeah, that holiday cost us about £300 or £400 more than it would have done a few months earlier.
Yeah.
Because of that, so all you leavers, you owe me fucking money.
Are you just gonna go around to people's houses and go, "Did you vote leave?"
Fuck.
And give me £1 if you did.
No, who's going to take responsibility for an important decision like whether or not we're going to leave the EU? Oh, hang on, it was us.
Yeah. And
well,
it's a weird situation because it's sort
paying
of
the price.
Yeah, it's democracy, but then again,
it's not though. That's not what democracy has become. It's not a one-day vote. Any other issue, but any other issue that's even vaguely nearly as important as that, for that small majority, would not just be allowed to go straight through. It would need extra checks and balances. It would have to go back and forth between the houses.
It's all like, oh, well, the majority of people voted for this, but it's still a terrible idea. And the only reason...
that's not how you decide the future of a country. That's how you decide where you're going to go for tea or what film you want to see at the cinema.
The reason that this happened was that a lot of the Tories voters were getting siphoned off to UKIP. And so that put pressure on David Cameron to hold a referendum.
Tories are fucking dicks. I mean, it is largely their fault that they even... There should have been a definition before it all took place of how much of a percentage it would need to be. I don't think anybody would have been against saying, oh, it's got to be 55-45 at least, or even 60-40 at least, because it's such a momentous decision. I don't think that would have been unreasonable at all, and I don't think Leavers would have been against that. But
I think they might be, because it's the active side that they're on, which means that they have to win a bigger victory.
Yeah, but like, if we were on the winning the active side, and I would be happy to accept that if it was 51-49 the other way, that it was clearly a very close, undecided thing. But I would certainly not think that it was justification to actually impose my will on the rest of the population. It's like some things, some changes are more important than others, and in a political system, something like this is probably one of the most important decisions.
There was a referendum in France
with the slimmest majority
a while back that I think I can't remember what it was on, so I can't actually look this up. Basically, the result was in favour of whatever it was. I think it was about 60-40, and they still didn't do it because they were like, "Well, that's not a big enough majority for this big change."
We shall see. Anyway,
I think one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realise prompted it was the EU was at the time calling for a joint army, which a lot of people that are like, well, Britain's Britain didn't really like, who wanted to...
That's another argument I don't get.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people didn't... Because if you took an in-depth look at the European Parliament, there's a bit of indirectness to it that people don't like. But then if you take an even deeper look, then you realise that, hang on, it's pretty much just every country sends representatives that are somewhat proportional to their population, and then they vote on things. And you vote for the people that you send to European Parliament, so it's still democratic. It just frustrates me.
That thing you were saying about the military thing, that's almost like the antithesis of what Europe was about, It's like, it's not long ago that the entirety of the population of Europe jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
And we want to leave that organisation.
I actually thought something, because in America, Donald Trump was talking about introducing a points system for immigration to the US, and having prizes like that, like the Nobel Peace Prize, was one of the things that could get you more points.
Do I get to keep my Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah.
Once we leave Europe,
I
do I have to give it back?
Hang on. Would that, if we wanted to emigrate to America, does that mean that we automatically get points if that was enacted because Europe won a Nobel Peace Prize? Well, the European Union.
The citizens of the European Union.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've rambled on for quite some time.
Oh, right, okay. We should probably wrap this up then. This might be a bit of a longer one then, but I think we've talked about pretty much everything that's
Yeah, we've had a whinge and a moan.
Yeah.
And upset some people probably, but, you know.
Us Ramoners, as you'd probably call us.
Checks and balances and all that.
Yep. Anyway, I've been Firebolt.
And I've been the Orbiter.
And this has been Breaking Bollocks. Brexit. Went out and out. Thanks for watching. We'd really appreciate it if you support us on various things, obviously subscribing on YouTube, Twitch, following us on Twitter or Facebook. We have a Discord server that you can join and talk to us and other people, and a website where you can check out blog posts.
And obviously this isn't free for us to run, so if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Patreon page where you can donate monthly and get subscriber rewards. We also have a Stream Elements tipping page where you can make one-off donations. The links are all in the description.
Farewell.
See you next time.